Hello, friends. My name is Cornelius Minor, and I am a Brooklyn-based educator. Hopefully by now you've been following this video series. For the last few weeks, I have been reading Kwame Alexander and Mary Rand Hess's Swing with kids all over the United States, and it has been an incredible experience. This is video number 4, so you'll definitely want to check the website, click on all the links, and you can see videos 1 through 3. And in each video, I explore the book through a lens of a particular issue that it raises. And I separate each video out into a few parts. First, I want to talk about a specific scene in the book. After I talk about a specific scene in the book, I want to talk a little bit about the issue that scene raises. Finally, I want to talk about how we as teachers can talk about all of these things in our classrooms, and then I'll end with a few suggestions and resources. As you probably know by now, Swing is an incredibly powerful book. Kwame and Mary did an extraordinary job of bringing to life two young friends in their final days of high school as they journey into love and passion and decision making and all of those things. But I cannot begin to talk about Swing without mentioning Moses Jones. He is such a catalyst to so much that happens in the book. And if it's been a while since you read it or you don't recognize the name, it's because we actually don't see that much of Moses in the book actually. So even though Moses has an extraordinary impact, we don't see him that much in the book. Now, if you'll remember, just to jog your memory, Moses Jones is Walt, or Swing's older brother. Now, Moses was a legendary high school baseball player in the community where Swing and Noah go to school. And Moses is a little older than Swing and Noah, so he's already graduated. And we meet Moses at a very interesting point in his life. Even though he was a legendary baseball player in the community, he ended up not going to college and not going pro. Moses ended up going into the military. And the point at which we meet Moses, he is just back from his tour of duty. And so Moses, we meet Moses, and he's not a high school student anymore. Moses is a veteran. Now that became really interesting when I was reading it with kids, and we only see Moses in snippets, or we hear mention of him as his brother Walt discusses him and talks about him. And one of the things that we come to understand or intuit or infer about Moses is that war has changed Moses, that he is not the same happy-go-lucky, supportive older brother that he was when he left the community. And that was something that really stuck with kids. Now we discover so much about Moses and what it means to be a patriot and what it means to honor the flag. But I wanted to talk about some of the issues that Moses' presence in this book raises. One of the things that the kids mention to me over and over and over again is, oh my gosh, Mr. Minor, I cannot believe he's a veteran. He's so young. And it's interesting to consider, and one of the things that I shared with the kids is that as a country, for those of us who live in the United States, we have been at war since 2001. And so many young kids that we serve in our classrooms have only ever known the United States at war. And so many of their peers, their older brothers, or people they've seen on television or heard about on the news have grown up with war as a consistent reality. So we live in a day and age where when kids enroll at 18 or 19 or 21 and they do 1 or 2 tours, we live among 21 and 22-year-old veterans. And that's a really unique concept for kids to begin to grapple with. It raises several issues that come up when we consider all of the traumas often associated with war, and then the vulnerability often associated with youth. We've got issues of mental health that this book introduces to us. We've got access to health care as a huge issue when we consider the plight of Moses Jones in this book. We've got the idea of healthy post-secondary opportunities for kids. So what do kids in various communities do after high school? What kinds of opportunities can they access? And when I wanted to talk with kids about those, this book gave us an excellent platform to have those conversations, because here we meet and fall in love with two great friends, but someone that they love, Moses, is impacted by by war and by all that war can do to a person, and then what happens when that person comes back into a community. Now, when I thought about talking about it in the classroom, of course, I didn't want to get into all of the specifics of war, so we really talked about various communities, and we asked lots of questions. So our conversation around Moses Jones wasn't a conversation that felt didactic in nature. It was a conversation that felt very inquisitive in nature. And we asked a couple of big questions, and I'll share those with you. We thought a lot about what does it mean for a young person to experience the traumas of war so young. And even though the book doesn't describe it in detail, that kids began to think about all that they saw in terms of Moses' behavior when he returned and in terms of his demeanor. We also thought a lot about who gets to go to college and follow their talents into university, and who gets to go to fight, really. And that was a really, really powerful question to ask. And the kids really began to dig. And one question that came up in the classroom is like, is military service viable in an age of perpetual war? That kids love the notion of having access to training and access to jobs and access to technology. But then when we talked about the nature of perpetual war, since 2001, and how viable is it as a career option for kids who might not want to fight. And that was a really, really interesting conversation. So those things. Another thing that came up in the classroom that you'll want to make sure to pay very close attention to is that kids began to ask me, why couldn't Moses get help? Where was the support for him when he returned home? And I thought of that as a healthcare question, and so we talked a lot about healthcare, but I also thought of that as a community care question. And so we talked lots about how we welcome people back into our communities after they have been away. And that had particular resonance in the classroom because often kids leave the classrooms for traumatic reasons. We talk about, and it was really great to get into a conversation with kids about what happens when a kid gets suspended or what happens when a kid gets sent to the principal's office, and how do we welcome those kids back into our communities in ways that are healthy and affirming and so that we don't see negative or potentially dangerous behaviors again. And so it was really, really wonderful to talk to kids about what is a community, what happens when someone leaves that community for whatever reason, and then how do we welcome people back into a community even after they have changed. So how do we begin to see them in new ways and engage them in new ways and support them in new ways? So all of those were really, really powerful things to discuss as we made our way through Swing. And the beautiful thing about Swing is that it presents so many wonderful opportunities to talk about this and so many other big issues. If you haven't already, you'll certainly want to visit kwamealexander.com/huglife. There you can take the Hug Life Challenge and download an educator resource guide written by me and Sylvia Vardell. And then if you want to take this conversation even further than the guide, the kids and I thought about so many ways that we could connect ourselves to issues surrounding veterans and medical care. And so certainly you'll want to reach out to veterans organizations, that there are so many powerful organizations doing work in our communities, and really inviting people into schools to speak, to talk about the experience, can be a really powerful thing for kids. We also thought lots about recruitment centers, and kids cared a lot about reaching out to young people who are their peers. And that's really, really exciting to see that kids were really profoundly moved to see that there can be a 21-year-old veteran, that these people are our peers. And so we wrote lots of letters and cards and sent them through our local recruitment center to make sure that other kids who were serving our country had access to our sentiments and to our well wishes. And then finally, we thought lots about ways that we can work in our community to help people into a better return home. And so we thought about encouraging local businesses and how we might work as student advocates to welcome veterans back, not just into our community, but to encourage local businesses to hire them. And so kids really talked a lot about letter writing campaigns and sending emails and doing education and public awareness campaigns. And so that was really, really exciting. And then we talked lots about school events and how we have so many events that are open to the community, and wanting to make sure that those who serve, be they veterans or firefighters, all have an opportunity to meet and to fellowship with us, because school, like any other part of a community, can be a place where people can feel connection and can be a place where people can feel valued. And we, as students, as agents of change, can do much of that work. And so thank you for joining us in this discussion. I am certain there will be more videos, and I certainly do hope that you keep reading. The Swing gives us an incredible platform to talk about so many issues. Thanks. Bye-bye.